welcome back everyone. Continue on with part 2, and today we are going to focus on making the armature so we can make our mini bust creature. Before I move on though, I was remiss yesterday. I mentioned Jordu Shell, but I should have spelled it out for you. This is a work by Jordu Shell, one of my all-time favorite creature designers, concept artist that works in creature and character design. jordushell.com. Had the privilege of taking a class from Jordu a few years ago, and a lot of what I'm showing in this video were tips I picked up from him. And I also mentioned Giancarlo Esposito. Just need to give people credit. Amazing actor. So where we're going to go is we're taking our drawing, and what I've done is I've just mapped out where the armature should go. Again, that armature is just the wire skeleton inside, and you've noticed I've left it inside so that we have room for a little bit of tin foil and also room to bulk up the clay. You don't want your armature coming too close to the outside edges, or it takes away some of your some of the flexibility with your sculpting. So I'm going to use this as a template, and I'm going to use the 1/8 inch armature wire that we talked about yesterday. I've cut it into a length. I just took a rough calculation. You can lay out a piece of string and measure it with your wire. If you're just using a wooden stick, just go straight up the middle. Just map it so it goes straight up. And I always like to find something that I can bend this shape around rather than trying to bend it by hand. So I've got this mallet here, and I've also marked the halfway point. So I'm just going to bend this wire over that handle of the mallet. Then I get a nice round curve on it. Okay, the next thing I want to do is get these straight bits here. So what I'm going to do is make a mark on the armature wire. Probably I'm gonna make it a little bit longer because I know it's bending back. So just make some marks here, and I'll continue to bend that around this shape, just so I have a nice, so I've got nice radiuses in there, not just all thrashed by hand. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that oval shape. But now what I want to do is make this straight bit, and I really recommend using pliers if you have some. So I'm just going to squeeze that there, and then bend that against the edge of the pliers. And then I'll do the same thing here. And so I think I need to make an adjustment. I want to bend this one back. So just bend it back. If you're not happy with it, just do it again. Okay, that's going to give me more what I want. I'm just going to take a minute and straighten this out a little bit more. I'm going to use the pliers and squeeze these together. Maybe that might be a little better. You can do all of this by hand if you need to. You get a little more squish if you can use pliers. Okay, and being careful not to use the cutting surface of the pliers. Okay, that's not bad. It's a little uneven here, but again, because I've made it small, like inside the sculpture, this little bit of lack of symmetry is not going to be an issue. So what I'm going to do before I go any further, I'm going to smack my head on the camera, and then I'm going to tape this together using electrical tape. One of the reasons I like electrical tape is that you can get lots of tension on it. So I'm pulling pretty hard, stretching it around. And the electrical tape also has obviously a pretty high heat tolerance. So we don't have to worry about it when we're curing the clay in the oven. Okay, that's pretty good. Get this back centered. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze this with the pliers right about here, and then bend each of those kind of shoulder forms out. Okay, so I'm not following exactly to my drawing. Right, I had it drawn here, but that's going to be okay. So now what I'm going to do is squeeze here and bend that like that. Okay. I'll do the same thing on this side. And I keep laying it down and making it flat. Okay, so far so good. So now what I want to do is I want to put in this change so that they go straight down, and that will give us something to mount into the board. Okay, I haven't used this yet. I want to get this profile first, and then we will bend it into shape to match that. So again, I'll start by clamping with my pliers. Again, don't panic if you don't have access to a pair of pliers. Ask for some next time you have a birthday, and then you can just use your fingers for now. And there. Okay, I do want to ensure, the best I can, that these little legs here, that they run parallel, because those are going to go into our block of wood, and if they're not parallel, then it's just you're just fighting with it to get it mounted in the block. Okay, but that's pretty good. You see, it doesn't follow exact, but I've still got lots of room around the armature wire. We'll build that up with foil and clay. So the next step is to just trim these a little bit. I don't want it mounted in the board and have all this chest to sculpt. I really want it to be cut off here. So I'm just going to trim these with a pair of snips, and then we'll mount it into the board. Okay, so I've just made some marks in the sculpture, knowing where I want it to sit. So using the snips, I'm going to cut those off. Sometimes I give it just a little bit of a squeeze. Okay, now we want to mount this into the professional sculpture stand here. So I've just got a drill with a 1/8 drill bit, and I've just taped off the bit. The reason I do that is it just is a super sketchy way of just managing the depth. If you don't have a drill bit, this is a good way to do it. So I'm just going to drill one now. And then I'm just going to make a mark with the other leg. And then there we are. That is now mounted into the board, and we can proceed with the next step. Okay, now we have our wire structure mounted to the board, and if we check the alignment, we're good from the front. However, we do want to we want to shape that from the side. We want to catch that curve of the head. So when you're working on the armature, it's always good to hold it in one spot and then bend it, because I don't want that torso. I don't want this to bend more than necessary. So I'll start with that, and then I'll hold it here and put in that bend to the top of the head. I can go a little more. And like we did with the straight on view, it doesn't have to match exactly, but you want to make sure that you end up in a situation where you have lots of room on the outside, but generally the sculpture will be well supported. That is looking pretty good like that. I think we'll call that done. I'll just check it from the front again, although it does have that curve going back, but that looks really good. So now what we can do is start to bulk up some of the mass, so we don't have to fill everything full of polymer clay. So I'm going to start bulking up the mass just by using some newspaper. And the only trick with the newspaper is don't just crumple it into a ball, because then it wants to just flatten out again. So rather, if you kind of roll it in on itself, right? So you always have a flat edge. Kind of just keep turning and rolling. And let's see what we've got here. I've got a decent tube there. That's actually a pretty good start. So then I'm going to take some electrical tape. Just get it into place. Okay, so we're starting to already build up some mass. So as you can see, I just keep adding little bits of balled up newspaper at a time, trying to keep that newspaper packed pretty tight and have it really well secured. And you want to just keep checking against your drawing to make sure you haven't bulked it up too much in any one area. again, we don't want the edge of the armature so close to the edge of the to the outside edge of the sculpture that you don't have any room to carve in or make any adjustments. So if we check this from the side as well, looks okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the, I'm pretty happy with the little bit of the chest, and I think I'll leave the neck because I might want to, I might build the neck up slowly and make it a little skinnier than it is, but I'm going to put a mass out front, kind of partway down the cranium towards the eye sockets, just to bulk that up a little bit. I think I'm happy with the back of the head, so I'm just going to continue on adding a little bit more paper. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with where this is sitting at this point. I don't feel the need to add any more paper. So at this point, you should already be considering the major forms. Okay, this is the first level of the actual sculpt where you're paying attention to the forms, even though we know we're building up around it. If we have a look at the profile, and you always want to be checking against your drawing. Okay, so I did add a little bit to the back of the cranium and the front. I left most of the, where the face is going to be, I left most of that open, just in case I want to, if I decided I wanted to open the mouth a little bit, but I think we're good to go. So again, think about the major forms. It should already start to look like something. If you just think of if you're just looking at the silhouette, it should have some form, some sort of interest to it. It shouldn't just be a straight ball on the end of a stick. Okay, so the next step is we are going to skin this with foil, and then our armature is complete. So the reason we add foil is because it gives a good surface for the polymer clay to bond to, and again, it doesn't react in the heat of the oven. And so just something to pay attention to is, again, you want to think about the symmetry. Okay, because if you're not careful when you're applying the foil, you can start to create some asymmetrical forms where you maybe don't want them. So I just start by packing it on, relatively, lightly to start, but then I give it a really good squeeze and really compress it. Again, I don't want any, I don't want an area underneath of the foil that doesn't have any support to it. Under the chin and around the neck is really critical that you give it a good squish. Okay, so I'm going to push up under that chin just to make sure it's really compressed. I'm squeezing it quite hard. And try not to put too massive of a chunk of foil on it at once. I'll turn this one around. I'm just going to leave a little around the bottom, and I'm okay if the back gets a little bit bulkier here, so I'm kind of double it up here. And again, really compressing it. Just pushing all this foil in around the bottom. Don't worry if it lifts a little bit where you have one piece to another. By the time we squish the first layer of clay on there, it'll be good to go. All right, congratulations, you have made the armature that is ready to start applying clay. So that's our first step, is to apply a thin skin of polymer over the entire sculpture.